struggle. You're like,
Yeah.
it's so much easier now than it was when I did it. I had to have all that other actual peripheral nonsense and nonsense. Well,
I almost counted. No, it's well, like I have my mic under the phone or under the computer so that like it catches me really well, and then it sets up with the speakers, so it's all direct, and I have it all done through my audio setups, so it works out really well. It's when I'm on the road that's what the hard part now for this, because like when I do these at like when I'm going to Denver and shit, I have to take the remote mics and all the different multi-directionals and omnidirectionals, and it's such a pain in the ass because I have to carry like 6 sets of headphones because yeah, it's a bitch. So
yeah, I never really got that whole thing dialed in when I was doing it, but um, the apps came a long way in that time, and I did have enough of like peripheral stuff to make it like kind of okay, but any ones on the road were usually pretty terrible, like either audio right off the phone, microphone or whatever, or if I don't know, just thinking back about all those weird little.
I loved your studio in Vail. That was cool.
Yeah, the actual room was way
That was
cool,
badass.
but
Like
then trying to like even a little bit make that happen, not in that room was tough, you know.
yeah.
So I'm just giving you shit. Hopefully, we'll record this one this time though.
Yeah, get it done since this is how do we were gonna have you do the season opener is what it was gonna be, and then yeah, that was like impossible to get done, impossible to schedule. Then we get it all done, and then the whole fucking software thing fucked up. But I think I got all the bugs figured out on my computer at least. I
Right
think
on.
so because
Good.
you're actually my sixth recording. You'll be episode 4.
Fuck that. Boop.
Well, some of it we have to wait because it's I have talked to a couple musicians and are waiting on releases of tour dates and album stuff. So until we have that, I can't put those episodes out. But the beauty is I'm going to do this today, render it tonight, and you'll be out tomorrow.
Cool.
It'll be the fastest turnaround I've got this season. And you saved me from doing a solo. I hate doing solos.
It's the worst.
It really is. Like, and my solos, like I was looking through, and some people do genuinely seem to enjoy them. They look at them like, oh, it's cool, like hearing you just kind of rant or whatever. But they tend to get really negative. I try to be positive, and I try to be like, oh, I'm going to talk about, do this and submit yourself to art and give into. And I end up just whining. I'm just really bitchy, apparently. So
I think it's, when you're in a room with somebody else, even if you're like you and I, we're both not the happiest people. Well, not, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But without like a different energy of any kind to bounce it off of, you just kind of crawl down your own asshole, and it's hard to say anything that feels like of any value. And that's actually one of the reasons that I really did in the end kill mine, just because I couldn't stand the thought of like trying to find somebody to sit with me. Like it was a new location and knew everything, and I had done so much solo bitching, like you said, that it just seemed like I didn't know if I had it in me anymore, and I didn't really even want to. It's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I think even if I found somebody, I would have a hard time bringing anything to the discussion that wasn't like just flat or awful or mean or whatever. So I
Well,
apologize for the sniffling off the top. I don't know, I have COVID again or something maybe, but
I hope
knock
not.
on wood, hopefully not.
Yeah, I hope not. No, your show was really organic, and that was the thing I enjoyed the most about it was the weird call-ins and having Rob on, or you just the people you interviewed and the times where you were just not really sure about what you were going to do, and then it ended up being like kind of unexpected gold. And that's when you were like, oh, I wasn't expecting it to be this episode, and it ended up being this way bigger thing. And the ones that you put a lot of time, like I'm so prepped, I'm so ready, and then they weren't what you wanted. I think that kills a lot of spirit. And for me, that's been the hardest is kind of why I'm going as unscripted as possible. I want this more like reactional documentary this season. That was the big thing. And it really, in talking mostly to Ian and Jobin, that was their biggest thing is they want to start doing interviews. They want to start doing more, and they're learning the software and doing stuff. And in order to do that, they've never done interviews. They've never done magazine or written an article or any of that. They just know how to have a conversation and go back and forth.
Which I think is the best kind. I mean, I think I fall somewhere in between like the trying to wing it and trying to be prepared so it doesn't look like you're winging it, but
Right.
also to be not, seem to be tied down or ask anything that's hacky or, it's a tough balance. And I feel like, the friends like you and Rob and like Melissa back when she did it, and there was a couple others that it was just kind of playing around, but we I would try to come to those later discussions in the podcast with notes at least, or just something that wasn't just, hey, did you see what happened and blah blah blah, like it's tough to make it organic and useful, I think, and even part of why, like, I mean, you've been asking me, we did one, what, 6 months ago, and it
Yeah.
just got lost. And, this summer, there's been a lot of stuff going on personally, but like even today, what did you ask me? Are you free today? And what did I say?
Black.
The- I
Yeah.
just like I'm in a mode right now where like I actually feel pretty good. Personally, things have kind of smoothed out a little bit, but the idea, and it was back then too, the idea of feigning interest. It's, I don't know if you ever watched Frasier, but there was Niles smashed his own wife about that. She exhausts easily under the pressure to stay interesting. You know, that's just how I feel lately, kind of in general. So, um, again, I hopefully we get to something that's worth something today, because
Yeah. Well,
I had to push myself to do this, and not because of you, not because of anything, just just kind of like
no,
get in your
sometimes it's a
own
mindset. Trust me,
space.
I get it.
Yeah.
My biggest issue with everybody that I've been working with is just, it's not just having content, it's not just having something to talk about, but in a lot of ways it's the scheduling thing. One of the
Yeah.
episodes that had no video this season was little Paulson, Caitlin Paulson, and I absolutely adore that girl, and she's very, very easy to talk to. We have great conversations.
Oops.
What are you filming? Great, thanks,
No,
Dick.
microphone.
Yeah. um but the biggest issue that we had is we could never find time to get her on video, because the only time she has to talk is when she's driving to and from work.
Right.
So we recorded on the phone. That was the easiest way to do it. And she's like, God, I really feel bad that I didn't do a video for you. And we're trying to figure that out. And then, she's supposed to, we got a convention coming up at the end of the month. She's going to come out to Colorado. That's the whole plan. Well, out of nowhere, she gets approved for an apartment or a condo or something in LA. She's literally leaving Minnesota right now to drive 30 hours to move to LA.
Jesus.
And she's like, this all happened so damn fast. Like, she didn't even give a full notice, but it's still one of those, like, she's like, I feel like I'm letting you down. And I'm like, no, because you're gonna have so much more to talk about here in like 3 weeks. Like, let's just, I'm willing to do that because it is more interesting. The thing is like, when I talk to people like you, because we talk so seriously about not only our personal lives, but the things that are going on politically, religiously, things of that nature, there's a lot more openness to it. But if it's just on a phone, it loses something. So having that schedule and being able to sit and do this is the hardest part of keeping this podcast going.
Right.
It really
Which
is.
is also, it's also like why I think I had a little bit easier time with it, because we talked about this the last time, but I never really incorporated the video element. Like we did a little bit of like 3 or 4 minutes on YouTube, but just like what would have, if we had like long legs and a lot of following, like what would have been like a nice little trailer sort of thing
Yeah.
for episodes. But like when you have 30 followers or whatever we had, it kind of fell flat. People would look at it, but it wasn't a draw. But I never, if I couldn't get people to come, getting people to come to my actual apartment that had the studio, respectable sandwich studio, by the way. That was the hard part at first, and then at the end of it. In the middle, it got easier. It was weird. I even had a couple of homies from Denver actually make the commitment to come do that. And it was cool that way. But I think the video element makes it harder to get people to commit.
Yeah.
Because it's just something I left off. I didn't buy cameras. Zoom wasn't really a thing. Skype was, but it wasn't.
It
I don't know.
wasn't reliable.
It didn't feel the same. The
Yeah.
fact that I have to look at this little square with my face in it on top, and then the bigger square with yours. There's something off-putting about that.
Yeah.
So, but I understand. And
I have a sticky note. I put my screen when there's a sticky note on my screen that blocks it, so I don't see me. It's legitimately like, yeah, it's legitimately it's so I stay focused.
I've been in therapy a very little bit since I talked to you last, so you should learn to love yourself a little more.
No, I'm good. I'm an equal opportunity hater. I hate everybody the same.
Well, I feel like, hate, or if you don't like the word hate, you weren't raised with the word hate, just a strong negative vibe towards something, I think that's why you and I can sometimes cobble together something interesting, because, man, there's just a lot of bullshit going on right now.
Yeah.
I'm curious to, not to steer things, but I want to talk about a little bit about these new online mental health app thingies.
Oh, dude, yeah.
I got a little experience in that whole thing, and chat a little bit about that. And then I definitely want to hear your hopefully going off about what's going on with TFG, that fucking guy.
Yeah. Well, I first off, this is going to be the most current of all these. The biggest thing that's gotten me this week, and you talk about mental health. I have a lot of friends in Australia and a lot of friends in Great Britain and things like that online, and have been pretty close to several of them with the Queen of England passing away.
Yeah.
People that I've been talking to since I don't sleep, they know I'm awake and they hit me up in the middle of the night and they're like, why am I so affected by this? Like, I was not expecting to feel this way. And they're kind of just emotionally devastated. And a lot of them are starting to reach out, and talking to Ritual, to Shell, and her doing some of her hypnotherapy and online sessions and things like that. She even said the last week has been like really heavy. Like, people from all over the world just suddenly have this feeling of, I need to talk to somebody. And it's really kind of strange.
Yeah. I had a weird thought about this. It's kind of a stretch, so follow me here. I was thinking about like how, people my age or younger, maybe I'm about to turn 41, and like people my age or younger, like how they react emotionally to like, actually personally devastating things. And I started kind of wondering, the fact that like say The Sopranos or Breaking Bad, like series that that kind of stuff when we were kids, I don't think necessarily existed to the point where it was by appointment TV, and you were invested in the characters so much that when something terrible in the show happened, it really hit you like a death. Like if they killed off a character, or anything like that it really messed people up. And I wondered if it plays into, obviously this is for the people that watch that type of thing. If it plays into like a desensitization. I don't have still have brain fog. I feel like words aren't right. I don't think that word was right, but being desensitized to.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said it right.
I think you did. I think you did good.
But not being affected so much when like real things happen, It's just a thought that kind of passed through my head. I had probably one of the closest deaths to me. I've dealt with a lot of death in my life, but not even 2 months ago, somebody that I really cared about passed away, and it was unexpected, and it fucked me up pretty good, And it actually, the amount of emotion that it brought out was a little soothing, because I wondered if, there's so many things in our entertainment bucket to draw from that are, instant gratification, entertainment value type of stuff, that I wonder if it makes us not feel life the same sometimes, you know. And it was just a good feeling to feel like, oh, I do have, there's something in here that feels pain and feels sadness about, you know, and feels
And
care and
having that
love for
emotion
something.
uncork, having that moment of,
Yeah,
okay, I really still am human.
yeah, and it's not that I don't think that I'm human, but there's, you and I think we hear about a lot of stuff that's like, what the fuck, like things. It's a little amazing how life has become, you know, it was a meme forever ago, but it's like I say what the fuck to myself 257 times in a day, you know.
Oh yeah.
That's just how nuts some of the things that happen are, you know. The attitudes and the actions of people, their ulterior motives sometimes, you know, like it gets really disheartening, you know. But I guess what I'm saying is, you know, trying to sift through your violent video games and your series that you plow through and you care about the characters and then they kill them off for you, you know. It felt good to feel like halfway human for once, you know, like halfway in touch with reality. Because I feel like that's a reality can be I mean, dangerously subjective, you know.
More than dangerously. Okay, so you brought up video games. I mean, I remember Columbine. Everybody blaming music, violent music, Marilyn Manson and metal and blaming video games. Oh, you obviously we've been completely desensitized to violence. I experienced violence, real violence, at a very young age. Real violence. And to me, I was more susceptible, more heightened, more aware of video game violence or special effects violence or slashers. Like, I mean, you know me, I love horror movies. I do. And I watch the shit that really fucks people up, not just the slashers and the bloodbaths, but I mean, things that people go talk to their therapists about and have permanent damage and flashbacks and shit. That's the stuff I watch. For me, I've never completely understood the concept of being desensitized by violence when it's so prevalent. It's almost like, do you ever watch Friends?
Well, duh.
Okay. Do you remember the episode where they got all
How
the
I
free
dress.
porn? Yeah. Do you remember the episode where they got all the free porn?
Uh, Keep going. Yes, but I
It's
don't
so
remember
so
what happened.
Joey and Chandler were in the big apartment and they got free porn on accident and they just like basically weren't going to work and they were just sitting there watching free porn for
Yeah.
like days. That's all they were doing was watching the free porno channels. And then they like one of them goes to the bank or goes to work or something like that and they're in the elevator and like I didn't understand it. There was two girls in the elevator with me and they didn't want to have sex. And then I was like, yeah, I went to the store and I saw a bunch of fruit and she wasn't like trying to be sexy with it. And they just looked at you like, maybe we need to turn off the porn.
Maybe.
And that to me resonated so heavily on the violence side. Anything that is mentally, emotionally, or physically stimulating can be absorbed into your everyday existence. It can be something where you're excited by it or not excited by it, depending on what your level is. And that can vary. As a photographer, as a videographer, I spend a lot of time around scantily clad, incredibly attractive people. That doesn't mean that I'm just trying to get laid.
Correct.
I can
But
play violent
that's
video
also a hurdle
games.
that you always have to get around when you're doing stuff, you know.
Exactly. And in fact, it's a stigma that you deal with. I mean, it's very hard to be taken seriously at times. I was like, oh, you're just a creepy old man who wants to hang out with hot girls. That's a very big deal. And I hear that all the time from all sorts of people. But I guess what my biggest issue with that is that just because I'm playing GTA doesn't mean I'm going to go drive around and try and run over hookers and collect $3 at a time until I'm rich. Because I'm playing COD does not mean that I feel like I'm a Marine. I don't
Well,
get how
and then
that
the
translation. And
ridiculousness comes from like, well, it's it's the setting and the construct of the game. You know, like we also don't uh, run across fields and hop on trees and find mushrooms and flowers and stars
Yeah.
to help a woman we've never really seen
Right.
and save her from a dragon. Like that's not that, it's also the same. It's the same level of ridiculousness. But I don't know what my point was. Go on.
Well, there's this suspension of disbelief, and you do that in movies. And you said, characters, like, depending on what the movie is, how invested you are in the series. Like, I've watched The Wire a dozen times.
Mm-hmm. God, I love The Wire. Anybody watching this, go watch The Wire. It doesn't always hold up like technology wise, but that's kind of what makes it cool.
Well, because it's like
it's
2001 to, when it was started and everything. I mean, you go back, you want to talk about how policing has changed just in the technology. Go watch season 1 and then watch season 5 and then go check out how they do it now.
Correct.
I mean, it's holy shit. But the city life, the inner city turmoil, you really get an understanding of Baltimore. And the fact that they talk about education, the fact they talk about journalism, the fact that they talk about politics, I really enjoyed that. But the thing that sticks with me, I can't watch the episode where Omar dies, man.
Right.
It fucking hurts.
Yeah, it sucks.
And that's a dude you can hate. He's a bad dude.
And that's that's what's great about The Wire, is because it not only does it kind of like, not kind of, it serves up on a silver platter, violence, corruption, evil, but it serves up all the characters in a way that you can still sort of empathize with their struggle, whether they're like considered a good or a bad guy in the show. If you're in there somewhere, you'll realize that even the bad guys, like there's things that pain them too.
Yeah.
And that's what, that's why they do what they do and things like that.
The anti-hero.
Omar was a different deal. Yeah, the anti-hero thing. I think I knew going in, because I watched it way late, and I think I knew going in that like pretty much hardly anybody survives. But his one,
it's not Game of Thrones level, but it's pretty brutal. And the fact that they integrated some of the people that were actually the cops that were part of the whole thing, when that one detective dies, that hurts. And you could tell it hurts not just the cops that are on the show, but the actors on the show that were playing the cops.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people realize that a lot of the cops on that show are actually police officers. They were not actors. They're the ones who produced the show, wrote it. But they played themselves. They were very real. And a lot of people don't realize that. It's based on a real family. I actually know a couple people in that family. But when you look at all those different things and you look at all the things that people are like trying to experience, and when they die, Wallace, Michael B. Jordan's character, that fucking hurts.
Yeah.
It does. And
Where's Wallace? Where's Wallace?
Dude, I can't watch a movie he's in without hearing it. And I love him as an actor. I think he's phenomenal. But it's one of those things, like, even when he dies in Black Panther, like, Wallace hurt more. Because he was just a kid trying to take care of everything. Well,
and even Omar, when I saw Michael K. Williams in anything else, all I wanted was, him to start whistling The Cheese Stands Alone and, blow people away. Like, I get probably the closest, and I didn't follow the guy, but like his character in like Boardwalk Empire was probably
pretty close.
I think it was the only other real like gangster role that he played. And it's just something that you grow to love, because that's the fantasy portion of it, but then that's what made that show so great, was that it brought reality and empathy to you at the same time. And I think that's why it hits different than, even Breaking Bad, because there's the Breaking Bad to me was close and it was good, but the suspension of disbelief had to be so much higher, because I think that's the other thing for like white people that watch The Wire, like they don't know anything about that shit,
Not unless they grew up in it or around it enough. It's a really good culture show. I say the same about Luke Cage. You want to learn Harlem? Watch the show Luke Cage. Yeah, it's a comic show, but damn, is it good?
Yeah, I missed that one. I don't do Marvel, so
I know. You can't be perfect.
I'm too invested in other ridiculous bullshit. So,
Yeah, I'm invested in all the ridiculous bullshit.
but again, let's make a gigantic loop and bow on this one. Like that's again what's cool about podcasts. And like whenever I hear people talking about starting one or doing one, or like, it comes up somehow, it's like, even if it's just for fun or just like a tester, like do it for a little while, because it will, if you get the right people and you get, some decent conversation going, like it'll kind of remind you about the stuff that you probably don't get as much anymore, unless you have like a halfway intelligent group of friends that you spend a lot of like personal time with. Like everything else is just, routine and going through the motions of, making a living or taking care of your family or trying to take care of yourself or whatever, can't, I'm the last one that needs more conversation with myself.
Yeah. Well, okay, but okay, so you talked a minute ago about like investing in a character. Like when you talk about a character dying off or things like did you watch the Fresh Prince reunion?
Reunion?
It was on, I think it was Netflix. They did
The,
like the reunion special and they all got together and like they met up, 30 years later or whatever.
no, I didn't, but we'll have to talk about, if you haven't seen it, you got to watch Bel Air, because that's a good one. They
No,
the
I watched a little
reboot,
bit. I actually want to. I just, yeah, well,
very good.
my whole ability to watch series and things is very limited just because of my time. But you're not the only person who's told me that I really need to watch that. The thing that got me is when it's palpable the pain they feel that Uncle Phil isn't around anymore. You feel that in their reunion and how much he affected them, not just as an actor and but as a father figure, and that's really intense. I think the whole planet feels certain things like that, but then there's real people that pass away, like the Queen of England, or I'm trying to think of some of the other things that have gone on, where they kind of just brush it off, but it affects some people that they don't expect it. They're like, why is this affecting me? Because maybe they weren't so invested. Maybe they weren't looking at it. And I can't tell if that's a newer thing, because celebrity death, when Paul Walker died, the world lost its mind. When Heath Ledger died, the world lost it. Michael Jackson, good God. I mean, these are celebrities on a level that we can barely comprehend. So you expect something. I don't know a lot of Americans that thought they would be affected by the Queen of England passing away, but they're finding that they are more residually because of people that they know than themselves directly impacted. And I feel like in some ways that's a post-COVID thing. That's a more of, because we're so Zoomed, because we're so Facebooked. Is that what it is?
Well, and I think part of that too is, I don't know if you ever heard the phrase like "make the dash count." Um, I think I mean, you mentioned people that are so, like, literally everyone on the planet knows who they are. Anyone that has, any kind of access to a newspaper or a TV or whatever, like somehow it's in their consciousness.
Yeah.
Uh, Michael Jackson, even like Kobe Bryant to a certain level. Who was I just thinking of? There's another one I just thought of that I forgot. But I think the idea of not only, I think probably top tier would be like mortality, like someone that and you've known your entire existence is just, it's over for them, So it's one thing to like think of like, oh man, it really does happen to everyone type of thing. That's how it is for me anyway. But I also think with people of that top tier, like that unattainable echelon, like, oh, the other one I was thinking of was Elvis. I just watched the new Elvis movie. And I think it might be deep, it might be surface for whoever, but I think it also makes you think like, about legacy, or about, like what people will remember about you, you know, not just, what happened with the Queen or with Elvis or whatever, but like I think internalizing, what am I doing with my existence that, like, will anybody remember, you know? And this is something that, like, this is a more recent, maybe I'm off base here, but for me it's like a way more recent thought, because I don't think I've ever thought that way before. I've never paid attention to, anyone remembering me or even cared really if anyone did. But sometimes things like this, I think it kind of turns the camera toward you about like, well, what are you doing with yourself? What legacy could you possibly leave? You know? And I think for me anyway, I don't have like a real strong push to be remembered necessarily by anybody but family or whatever. But I think that kind of pops up a little bit. What do you think? Am I wrong?
Well, I know. I mean, I think there's a lot of merit to that. I think it's not just a sense of mortality. Um, Unpopular topic, but the mass shootings. We have a school shooting and the whole fucking country goes nuts, and oh, we need gun control. We need to keep our guns, and everybody's on these polar opposite ends. And it's just really just electrified and really a hot topic. But after a couple of weeks, it just goes away. And so I think everybody looks and goes, what would I do in that situation? How would I react? And they don't know. And that's any crisis, but people don't realize that. It's what we like. We celebrate celebrity in this country on a level that is disgusting.
Correct.
Be it actors, musicians, athletes, whatever. I find it gross. I really do. It really bothers me how I don't give a shit what's going on between Kanye and Kim. I don't fucking care.
Mhm.
I don't. I just don't give a shit. I don't care about keeping up with the Kardashians or Jersey Shore or that stuff. I mean, yes, there is some reality television that I do more documentary style, where it's like tracking them and watching them and seeing what they're doing. I'll pay attention to those things. And there's some things with musicians and stuff that I get really focused on, but I don't. And yes, I understand I'm in a unique position in that I know some of these people, so I get that. But even the people I don't know, like for me, the celebrity side of something doesn't matter nearly as much as the substance side of a person. People talk about Chris Farley and they talk about how funny he was and he was so great and he was this and he had drug problems. You know what I think about when I think about Chris Farley? The fact that he used to anonymously go to soup kitchens and shit like that and give his time and actually spend time in his community. That's the stuff that matters to me. The fact that I don't give a shit what people are doing randomly to make themselves famous. I give a shit what people are doing anonymously to be better people. And television and internet and celebrity has just completely gutted that on a level that I get really angry about it. And so when I look at people just dismissing things like this, sure, right now people may have a sense of mortality and, oh, what am I doing? And I need to better. But it's the same thing as like I tell everybody every year, like the stupidest thing you can fucking do on January 1st is make some kind of a resolution, because I give you 30 days before you've forgotten about it. Don't make a resolution, change your fucking life. You don't need a reason. You don't need a holiday. Fucking do it.
Right. But that's the anti-American part, like we can do whatever we want. Why would I want to do better?
Yeah.
I think that's where, I don't know. It's a weird. I've thought, like the idea. Like, have you ever thought of like if you were to die, like if you could somehow like float above and see, or like for real, like I don't know what happens,
Obviously.
but like you were actually like let's pretend you were still alive somehow, but there was a funeral for you with a body in a church or wherever you want to do it. Like to be able to see like who shows up or how sad people are, or like if anyone shows up. um I think that's a thought that I've had ever since I was a little kid, unfortunately. But um that was another one of my little bizarre, not bizarre, but like there was a funeral recently, like I was just mentioning a while ago, and I remember family members and some friends and stuff, they were a little bit surprised by the turnout, you know and it's like, yeah, this is what I mean, like to be pleasantly surprised about whatever you left behind, like the mark you left on people's heart. you know um I know not everybody that came came because of that reason. They did it for show or for, whatever other reason. But there were definitely people there that were there because almost strictly because there was some more indelible aspect to that person that they wanted to pay respect to, I think that's, I don't know. It's an interesting thought, like,
Those people, I get really, really, I get frustrated when people show up to funerals and act like they were the best friend of the person who passed.
right.
I get really upset when, actually, I'm dealing with a situation now. One of my best friends is dating a girl. The girl likes to tell me how this guy is, how he is, and and I don't know how to be nice about it and be like, you met him 6 weeks ago. I've known him for a decade.
Right.
I've been on the road with this guy. I've spent time with this guy. We have innumerable stories, and yet you're telling me how he is after 6 weeks. And it's, for me, it's not like a jealousy thing. It's not like, it's literally like, who the fuck do you think you are? To tell me, a person that I have a long-standing, close relationship with, is, without doing the whole "I told you so" moments. Also, when they're wrong and something happens, like, oh, he's gonna love this, it's gonna be great, and then something happens and he's upset, and I'm like, I fucking told you so. And I don't like being the "I told you so" guy. But it's
Well,
a
I think
little bit gratifying.
it's a quality that you and I both possess to a point. I think yours might be a little bit more honed in than mine, but lately, I don't know. In that, the people you spend time with, or even people brand new that you meet, like we have a sense to people.
Right.
There's well, we talked about this in a particular context. I'm not going to go there, but the fact that, like, here's how I describe myself. I have like a tiny, like, let's call it a 4-inch little
Penis?
curb of sand. Correct. Sand penis. Sandy, granular, 4-inch penis.
Yes.
Small little curb made out of nothing around me at all times,
Mm-hmm.
And when you meet somebody, or like, your friend forever, like you know the proclivity, how do you say, like, what instinctually how they're going to act in a certain situation. Like when you're friends, it's like you guys, you can kind of know that, and like you can be shocked or surprised in certain aspects. But I think there's a sense, especially if they're new, like whether this person is worth a damn or not,
Yeah.
And we also have, if they're going to come any closer, there's like a really broad and vague, but has to be met criteria in order to like continue anything. Talk to me like a person, make eye contact, like show any kind of life in there.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then the smoke goes off, and then that's how it is for me anyway. Just the idea of being able to have that, I don't know if it's a protection or what, but like when you meet somebody, like what's your little list? Like what do they have to do? Like not everybody just gets a free pass to be
Right.
around you, correct?
Not even, well, God, this is gonna sound so pretentious. I don't even pay attention to people's names most of the time when they introduce themselves or when I meet somebody. Like, I meet so many people and have and am just in contact with so many people that it's not that I want to downplay a person's existence or anything, but until you've done something that makes me take note, you're kind of a cardboard cutout extra. Like, when they're filming like the big scenes in movies and they need a giant crowd and like there's like 30 people and then like 600 mannequins.
Right.
That's actually how my everyday feels.
Or just sports in COVID era.
Right. There you go. Where it's like, let's put a bunch of fucking screens up or things. For me, and I've been living this way for a long time, actually, without realizing it, and then kind of have started really like, okay, this makes sense. I don't have anybody in my life that I need. I have people in my life
Correct.
that I want.
Correct.
And I've learned a lot, especially being hurt and homeless, you know, where it's like I'm literally injured, can't really take care of myself, but I'm living in a fucking van in the middle of summer in the desert because, you know, I'm so smart. You know, those moments of, do I need anybody? Did most people even know I was going through that? No. The
No.
people that did, it's because I chose to allow them to see that part of me. When I meet somebody, for one, there's that, call it the supernatural sense or whatever. I mean, you've called me a vampire. Other people say that I'm a monster, and I can just read people and kind of fuck with them a little bit. It's an unfair advantage. It's like my whole
Well, see
world
that
is
that's
played like a poker face.
yeah, that's where you and I differ because I think when I have that little tool working, it's in the hope that like, ooh, a friend, you know,
Yeah.
or like I don't think you have that at all. I think
No.
if there's ever like a ooh, a friend moment, it's like way down the line, something
Yeah.
bigger, something,
Well,
even,
learned
even
many,
between
many
you and
years
I,
ago. I learned many years ago that I can make myself appear very open, and I can give. It's. I'm a. You
it's
know, like
rope a
in
dope.
books, when you open a book and you read just the jacket and it gives you kind of a synopsis. I'm great at the synopsis. You get an idea of what I'm about, but you got to get to chapter like 38, 39 before you actually understand any part of me. And most people by chapter 3 or 4 are like, I can't do this. That's too
Well,
much.
you're the guy that is like you're the definition of don't judge a book by its cover. I'm
Correct.
the definition of I'm the definition of, or the way I work anyway is, well, no, that's why the books have covers. Do pay attention to that shit too. Don't. I
Yeah.
think it gets lost in translation a little bit. Like that's why books have covers. Stupid. Like
Yeah.
watch that too. Yeah,
No,
it's a
absolutely.
little.
And I would agree with you that is that most people when they meet me, they assume I'm aggressive and mean and stupid and all those things. And then they
No one thinks you're stupid. What do you mean?
dude, I get that a lot. Especially, I love it. My favorite's attorneys, and like city council members and things like that. People that are in official offices who like to assume that I'm an idiot. That's like my favorite shit ever. Because then when I start talking to them, they're like, "Oh, I'm in trouble." Like I got in an argument with a real estate agent who was trying to quote to me banking law, and when I turned around and gave her the code and cited everything, and she's like, "There's no way that's correct." She pulled it up on her phone. She threw her phone at me and left. I was like,
Well, that's their fault. That's they
but
think
that's just
they're
it. You know, I will always answer a question honestly. 90% of the time, the answer is, I don't know.
correct.
But the next time you ask me, I'm probably going to know because it's going to bug the shit out of me that I don't know the fucking answer to that question. And that's
Right.
how I live my life. And because I don't sleep, because I have such varied interests, because I'm wearing so many different hats every day and have so many different irons in the fire that if I didn't have that, I wouldn't know how to pass the time. I
Right.
wouldn't. And it's those inner monologues that you're like, I need less time to be inside my own head. For me, I stay busy so I don't talk to myself.
Right.
And I do spend a lot of my time alone. So it's this weird kind of mix of shit. I don't
We
know.
got a guest. We have a guest.
Oh yeah, the dog's around. She's driving me
Well,
nuts,
yeah,
actually.
and I wish I had a little bit more honed ability to kind of like, even if it was an incorrect prejudgment, to kind of play with the idea ahead of time like you do. Mine is truly like, like, hey, group hug, like I'm down to like know people and maybe make a friend or whatever, but like it's it's that intuition or whatever you want to call it that can be detrimental for sure. Like yours sounds more fun than my version of it because when I get shown exactly why somebody sucks, it's like I take it personally. It's
Yeah.
kind of weird, like
See, and I'm so used to people sucking and being in and out and things. For me, it's a level of how much I will allow myself to take. A lot of my closest friends say, let's say I let myself get taken advantage of. That I will let myself get abused and used, and oh, they're just your friend because of the travel or because of the fame or because of the music or because of the money or because of the jobs or because of whatever. You provide this doorway for them. Well, yeah, I do. That's my choice. I'm not oblivious to it. I don't ignore that. I have one friend and I love her to death. And about once a year, she just loses her fucking mind on me and won't talk to me and just wants nothing to do with me. And then comes back a few months later, like, I don't even know what happened. I'm really sorry. And people are like, how do you put up with that? Because when she's around, she's one of my staunchest supporters and makes me feel like there's a purpose to this planet. She's so positive and so hopeful that it makes me feel like, and it's not naivety, it's just that she really truly believes that the world can be better. And I need that.
Well, and I think, I'm guessing and speculating here, but I do know some relatively, full on positive people. And I wonder if she kind of throws that little wrench in your guys' relationship, because at the same time she feels the stability and the the compassion for you and all that kind of stuff. At the same time that she feels like she's waiting for something to drop, because when you're that open and positive and you do bring people into your circle, you get let down way more often.
Oh,
When you're looking at everybody through side eye, you get let down, but it's not quite as often because your little protections, it just doesn't happen as often. Like I hate to say it, but sometimes when I meet new people, like it takes 10 seconds and I'm like, fuck that guy,
yeah.
or this bitch is, she's all about herself, fully entitled, fuck that. Maybe she has had her teeth kicked in a handful of times, and your steadfastness in her head maybe is setting her up for like a harder fall somehow.
Well,
So
and
like it's almost
that
like
was
a
a
test,
situation in one of my relationships. That was actually a big deal. Like one of my exes used to be so convinced that things were going to fall apart, she would kind of make up shit to fight over, to
right?
try and force the issue. And it sucks because like we're still great friends and we still have this great relationship as far as that's concerned. But there's a lot of time where I'm like, God, if you would just shut up for a day or two and stopped trying to force things to be bad. Stop expecting and manifesting the negative. I'm one of those people, like I always figure shit out. I do, good, bad, or indifferent. I figure shit out, and I may be having a damn near heart attack all the time. But I don't want people to know that. I don't want people to have to worry about that. My lot, my choice in life is to be the person who continues forward and continues to put in work, even if it seems fruitless. I'm still going to do that, and I think that there's value to that. I learned that from my dad. A lot of people say that I'm a workaholic, and for me, yeah, I work a lot. I do, and I feel the need to work a lot for stability for a million reasons. But my work is my hobbies. That's my way of staying moving forward, and that is all.
Creative outlet.
Yeah, it's my way of that's my legacy. It's my way of determining for myself. So when I have people who have that expectation of, well, this is going to suck or this is going to fail, like my favorite thing in the world, like people are always like, God, sometimes it's like your magic. No, I math, words, basic human interaction. It's not magic. If you
Knowledge,
decide to
wisdom.
do something, kill yourself trying. Period. Or it's not worth trying.
Well, yeah, whatever the thing is, and I find myself just I'm perfect at dispensing advice to everybody else except myself,
Of course.
And but it's one of those things where like there's very few aspects of life, maybe only one, that you can't beat. It might always be a fight, that you never really feel any rest from it, but like if you want something, you can do it.
Yeah.
But
you
it's
can't control
also
time, you can't control the weather, and you can't control
death.
other people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Well, some
of course there's
people
levels of
try.
that. Well, no, I mean, Yeah, and there's always, latex and leather. I, I guess
Yeah.
my thing is, okay, so you talk about like when you meet somebody, it's like, oh, hey, new friend. Oh, hey, new opportunity. I want to learn something. I want to take something. For me, I do
Or
that.
even as small, sorry to interrupt, but as small as like, I'm gonna be in front of this person for 10 minutes. Like, well, hopefully this doesn't go terribly.
Yeah,
Just,
I'm
but
more
it is a
likely.
positive outlook.
I'm more likely to react negatively and not say a word and just keep quiet. But I'll go pet a shark or a bear. New friend. For me, that makes sense. For me, like, oh, cool. Here's this dumb, stupid thing that could get me hurt. I'll try that instead of remembering somebody's name or something like that. Now, the other side of it, because of the way my memory works, if somebody does do something, even if it's years later, they'll be like, do you remember me? I'm like, yes, I do. I remember this, and this is where I met you. What's my name? I can't remember your name, but I do remember meeting you. And I do remember this. And they're surprised by that. If you do something impactful, some people I've met, like literally, I meet them doing something amazing. And I will forever have an impression of them based on that moment, even if I learn later they're a piece of shit. Or if I have a piece of shit moment and that's how I meet somebody, they can try and redeem themselves later, and it doesn't always work.
Right.
So that kind of goes both ways too. And again, it goes back to the impression and the legacy you leave.
Right. Well, it's like, you do, I hate to say it, and I hate talking about like law of attraction, synchronicities and all that kind of stuff, but like whatever you're putting out there, you will get back. And I think that's what keeps people like you and I semi in check when things are going wrong, you know.
Yeah.
Um the ability to, self-correct and and well, maybe not even correct, but at least be able to look at yourself and be like, if you're having a rough time, how am I contributing to that? Sometimes it's super easy. You're like, well, I've been a fucking cunt for the last however, like even today, the last week we've been trying to get, or you've been trying to get me to do this show, and I've just been like, I got nothing. You know, you're a content creator. You're doing something. You're jazzed about it right now, and I don't want to like be a speed bump that doesn't land with your people. That's part of why I was like, I just don't want to talk right now.
Yeah.
But it's not even true. That even when I said that to you, I was like, that was absolutely true like 3 months ago. I would have done it probably, but I truly would have been like, I'll sit with you for an hour, but it's gonna be terrible and it's gonna be negative, and um, but even having that ability to look at yourself when you say, "Oh, you want to do this today?" I'm like, ugh, like, but I really do. I want to be good, like that was the
Yeah.
whole
Well,
thing
and
there.
that's, I mean, you shouldn't ever want to do something that you know you're going to fail at, obviously. But the other side of it is that, like, you and I've
You
talked about
can't
the
talk
glass
yourself
ceiling,
into failure,
right?
like, you know what I
Well, we've
mean?
talked about the glass ceiling thing, and the fact that so many people hit that glass ceiling and they just assume life is over. And there's different levels of success. One of the biggest things that I struggle, especially with my friends who are struggling with sobriety, they never take a moment to see how far they've come. If you're climbing that ladder and you're just trying and trying and trying, and you have that one goal in mind and you're just trying to get there, stop, take a breath, and look around and see how far you've come.
Yeah, and fucking clap yourself.
And
Clap
people don't
yourself.
do that.
Applaud yourself.
They don't fucking do that. And it drives me nuts. Like, I watch people, and I guess I mean, I say the sobriety thing, but even people who struggle with their mental health, like the fact that they're finally able to talk about certain things or deal with certain traumas. When you finally hit that point, like, accept it as a positive thing. That is a goal, whether you set it as a goal or not. That's actually a goal. It's like when you're playing a video game and you pass a checkpoint. You didn't mean to get to the checkpoint. You're trying to get to the goal. But if you don't get
Right.
to the checkpoint, you got to start all over.
Correct. Yeah,
And I
it's
don't know
like,
why that's so hard for
go
people to understand.
go back or look back and count how many days. Like they talk about, like sobriety works best when you get all those sober days in a row.
Right.
You know,
You stack them up.
back. Like I can't. I'm actually a good example of what not to do. I haven't. I've been constantly working on no casual drinking since about March, right? But I took a couple of opportunities, vacation type of things. I was with you
Hmm.
one of the times, and I was like, you know what? I I never on purpose. I've never ever said I need a drink. Like in the context of like, wow, today was hard. I need a break. You know, my version of I need a drink is like, it's almost 5 and I'm getting a little ticky here. I need a drink.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. That may not mean like, so there's probably 3 days in the last 6 months or however long it is that I've drank. You know, for most people they'd be like, that's if they're trying to stay sober, that's a failure. But for me, I'm actually just kind of still stoked on myself because I at least was able to bring myself an improvement in you know the contextual moderation of when I did. You know,
Right.
like I'm in a spot. It's been super rough. I need a drink. I had the drinks and then I stopped. You know, so I mean, it is even like I said. There's people that might hear this that think like, well, you're not sober. You're not doing anything. Fair enough. I agree with you to a point, but I'm still proud of myself. I still look at that time that I've tried to be better, and I see it as a win.
Well, let's
So
take you out of context. So let's make it not you. Let's make you a 20-year-old, 28-year-old single mom
again,
who hasn't had a drink in 6 years because you've done nothing but raise kids, and you go to Vegas for the weekend. Is it bad that for 3 days you're just so tore up you don't remember the whole trip? Does anybody look badly on you? If it doesn't affect somebody in a negative way, if you took a vacation and went and had drinks when in your day to day you don't, what is the issue there as long as there's not a negative backlash? Obviously, if you go and you get drunk and you rob a jewelry store, there's a problem there. But I mean, and that's been my biggest thing with
well,
that.
that's the gamble of it. It's
Yeah.
just you know, can I still dip in? And I think what I do eventually want is you know just no tie to that former self at some point.
And I get
Um,
that and I understand that. But I mean, it's the same thing as like, my ex, we talk about her alcoholism a lot, and she can't have a drink because a drink turns into 30 days of binging.
right.
One single sip of alcohol, a sip of champagne at a wedding, and for 30 days, she's drunk. And then she has to start the drying out process all over. And it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard for anybody who does that. There are different levels of alcoholism. There are different levels of dependency. There are different levels of what a person considers sober. I have a friend, she says she's California sober because she smokes weed but doesn't do anything else. But she
Right.
smokes more weed than anybody I know. Like, she can't go to the grocery store or the gas station without getting high. She can't have a phone conversation without rolling a joint. Like, she smokes more weed than anybody I know. And it's like, they say weed's not dependent, but that's her way of doing it. People who chain smoke, I have to smoke because I'm working. That's dependency.
Right.
Oh, I don't smoke anymore, but I vape now. It's better because it's water. It's all still the same thing. It's a level of,
It's still dependency.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
dependency. It's addiction. It's whatever. You have to find that level within yourself of what's acceptable. And I think that more now, I mean, they always say you can't get sober until you hit rock bottom and you choose for yourself. You can't have sobriety for somebody else.
Right.
And for me, last summer when the doc said, look, we're changing your meds, we're doing this, you can't drink anymore. Okay. He went, really? That easy? I was like, yeah, that easy. I've been sober several times in my life. And it's easy for me to be sober.
Right.
That doesn't mean that I don't go through every day looking at a bottle of whiskey going, God, I just want to drink the whole thing. Or every time I'm out, I want to have a beer. Or I do. I want those things. I'm lucky in that I have a
But
tolerance that
that
allows me to do whatever I do without getting wasted or doing something stupid. I don't need that to survive. I don't need it every day, but I think about it every day.
but that yeah, that looking at the bottle is the comfort.
Yeah.
You're looking at it and going like, I'm feeling away, but if half of that goes in my face, then I won't feel that way till tomorrow or whatever, you
Yeah.
know.
It's
So
it's
it's
emotional procrastination.
devaluing yeah, and it's also like, you know, trying to find a way to devalue your comfort zone, because guess what? 9 times out of 10, 9 people listening to this out of 10, your comfort zone is horseshit.
It is.
It's of no value to you or your family or anything, you know. It's your bubble, and we get it, you know, but at the same time, all right, we get it.
Yeah.
Enough already, you
Yeah.
know. I think that's where
Absolutely.
I've gotten personally, and like you and I have both, you know, well, maybe not you. I don't know enough about you and your stuff, but I think we've had plenty for a lifetime, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I've had enough for
And
7 lifetimes. I've literally added it up. About every 7 years, I live an entire lifetime, and I do all the dumb shit that's supposed to be in a lifetime in about 7 years.
right.
And I'm,
Well,
so I've got
and that
six of them.
happens more quickly when you're lubricated like that, you know,
Yeah.
like dumb shit comes in waves.
Well, but at the same time, I'm that same person who, like I was telling you about that Las Vegas trip. It was completely sober for me. It was a sober trip. I did just as much stupid shit as I ever do. For me, I just like the adrenaline rush and the dumb shit. I'm that guy. I don't need to be drunk or inebriated to go do something fucking stupid. I also don't need to have that liquid courage to go talk to a beautiful woman or take a chance or get in an argument with somebody or step in the middle of a fight. I don't need that. That's how I'm wired.
Right.
I need it more to separate myself from those things
Right.
than to enact those things and enable those things.
Right.
It's a social thing for me. And for me, people talk about, oh, I'm antisocial. I really am antisocial. I'm completely comfortable being completely disconnected from the rest of the planet for extended periods of time, as long as I have connection and knowledge of what's really going on. As long as I
Right.
feel like I still have some cognizance and awareness of what's going on, I don't need to be around people.
Right. Well, and I think, you know, especially if you're, for me anyway, I think there's portions where like I'm hanging on to that cognition by a thread, you know, and it probably isn't a great idea that anybody's around, you know.
Yeah.
Like my poor coworker, I'm sitting in my shop now, and you know, him and I we have a lot in common, you know, as far as like upbringing and that kind of stuff. And poor guy, he's heard any bit of bullshit that you know about, he's heard about, but like at work, you know, I'm fucking trying to do something, you know. He never he never says like, I don't want to hear it today. Like he's always down to listen to that. I have to eventually stop talking, and I'll be like, I'm sorry, I gotta stop, you know. But I think for me that hanging on to the reality, even by a little bit, sometimes is what dictates, you know, like who's around me or not. Like, is it time for a alone time, you know? Um, and that's the struggle with sobriety with me, because it's like, okay, I don't want anybody around. I could go do this. This is the comfort zone thing that I know, but you know, I'm trying not to do that. So I'm trying to just have that construct, or like propping yourself up like an adult, you know. Um, that can be hard too, you know. And I don't think I have the same level of skill that some people do. Like, I mean, I look at you like master, you know, not of me, but I do admire, like, as much as you struggle and things are not always awesome, like you never stop, you know. And I think you're one of the people that kind of keep me from, you know, ever doing anything super drastic, or, you know, really going down the rabbit hole again, you know, because I don't, at this point, it's almost like competition. Like, I don't want to be looked down upon by you, you know. It's
Well,
important to me
you
that
described
we're
our
friends.
friendship, and it was funny because a couple of my friends met you for the first time here when you were up here a few weeks back, and
Sorry,
they've
y'all.
heard me talk about you. They've heard, and they were like, and I remember the day one of my friends, he literally was like, "You guys are friends? Like you're like tight?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You are so fucking mean to each other. Like you just good guy." He's like, I thought you were gonna fight several times because you're just ripping on each other. And you're not laughing. You're not, oh ha ha. It was like you were literally trying to belittle each other in a way that was, and it would get to a point. He goes, it was almost like watching a tennis match. And years ago, you described our conversations as like a really good game of chess because you're trying to get moves ahead to figure out where the conversation's going to go and where we're going to take it and whether we can meet up and battle it out or whether one of us takes the lead or whatever. And I think that's a very rare thing for people to have, like these verbal or intellectual sparring matches that aren't confrontational.
I didn't really, this is how ridiculous I am. Like, I think we learned survival and or at least the instinct of survival. I was never in like real danger or anything like that, but you learn that when you're young, and my family in particular, they're big-hearted people, but they are, for a layman's explanation, like it's the George Lopez show, you know, taking shots at your son, taking shots at your mom. Like, no, everybody's fair game, but you're only fair game because you're family and we love you,
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize about a lot of people, especially more recently and like younger than me, like what you and I do, like the way we talk to each other, like when we're doing that shit to each other, it really freaks them out and it actually kicks their survival instinct in because they think that people are arguing or they're, something's about to go down, like a friend said, and we call it breaking balls or whatever. And there's people that just don't understand that concept, and that, to me, that's wild. And it's also like it's good, and it's also, to me, a little sad because it's like, well, if your friend or your brother or somebody does something stupid, like why can't you humiliate them a little bit before you pick them up off the ground or whatever?
Yeah.
Like that's how we.
And the concept of getting in a fight with somebody now and then picking them up and taking them for a beer or becoming friends with your bully, like that. Like I didn't get bullied by the bullies in school. I got bullied by my friends. I didn't need that. I mean, my friends were defending me from the bullies, but they were still bullying me. That was normal.
Right.
Like, I mean, if the bully came up and said, "Oh, you fat little four-eyed fuck," and blah, 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 one of those guys would, "Don't you leave my fat friend alone."
Yeah.
He's our little tub of lard, but he's our tub of lard. You leave him the fuck alone. Like, that was how it was. And to me, that was like, that was normal. It didn't resonate.
Yeah.
I mean, and some of this comes, like, it comes out later in conversations with my dad, or especially conversations with my son. Like, what I viewed as like, this is just how you're raised, or this is just how it is. Like, a lot of people today that are aged 20 to 28 would view my entire childhood as trauma.
Correct.
Even the really positive shit, they're like, seriously? And I'm like, yeah, like, I don't regret that. I will never be that person who looks back at high school like, best 4 years of my life. Fuck that. People like that, I can't level with. I can't. If that's your peak, that's your height, what do you do with the next 60, 70 years? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? However,
well, you can have your pack, but you're lone wolf,
Yeah.
Some people aren't like that. They have to have their pack or else they got nothing.
Well, and some people, they're shocked that there are some people from high school that I still talk to almost daily. And they're like, really? Like, that's so strange to me. Like, I don't talk to anybody from high school. And then there's others that, like, my dad I mean, God, he's been graduated 53, 54 years. And he talks to a lot of people he went to high school with pretty regularly, every couple of days. It's very different in how you relate to different people and where you're from. That small town mentality versus big city mentality, the idea of a more metropolitan nature versus segregating yourself off. I think that I tend to gravitate towards and accept more people who are willing to look beyond the local boundary. Like, and I say this all the time. If you look on my Facebook, or you look on any of my stuff, most of the people I'm connected with the social media wise, they're not locals. They're not people here in Grand Junction. They're people around the rest of the planet. That's why I have that, is so I can talk to the people I can't go hang out with.
Right.
But does that mean we don't still have quote unquote art nights and family dinners? I had one last week and I invited a bunch of my friends over and had shepherd's pie, and we all hung out and had a moment together and then went out and had a drink or two together, like that's normal to me. So the idea of not having somebody to be adversarial with and know that it's still a connection. I mean, we've been talking fairly regularly for a decade.
Right. Well, what you said about, the bullies, and you just said the word adversarial, like that's what's lost on the new people is, those things are now branded bad.
Yeah.
Like there's no good version of, somebody taking the piss out of you with, a joke or whatever. If they're coming at you being hurtful and stuff like that, there's no excuse for any of that.
Everybody
It's
talks about competition. Competition breeds excellence. Competition is healthy, and yet everybody gets the participation award.
right.
There's
Well,
no competition there. If you just show up, you win. That to me, I don't grasp that. And people talk about, because yeah, I used to fight, and yeah, I've lost way more fights than I've ever won.
right.
I've lost way more arguments than I've ever won. Period. But if you and I are ribbing each other and giving each other shit, and 10 people around us are laughing, I feel like we're both winning.
Correct.
Yeah, we're competing with each other to see who can get the other to go, fuck, I give. But
and it makes me happy to see like younger people that have something like we do. I wish I would have saved this. There was a Twitter thread that I was like, I should send this to Eric and we should do a podcast about these. It was these 10 things that were like, hey, everybody on the planet, especially in America, has missed that these 10 points are now a reality that are different than probably the majority of you were raised to believe. And one of them was talking about this is a little bit broader, so I apologize for this, but one was just talking about how, like, how is America so divided? Obviously, they were kind of talking politically and stuff, but it's basically like how you and I, and I think, hopefully most people were raised with like a set of values, or like just some, like, even if they're like dotted line principles of, right and wrong, good and evil.
A moral compass.
Correct.
Guidelines. Yeah.
But it was all like kind of, like I said, in America, especially, kind of like a broad stroke that we all got a little paint on us, So like, even something as silly as, pro wrestling back in the day when Hulk Hogan was the man, and Nikita Koloff or the Iron Sheik, like it was playing into the political upbringing we all had, yeah. That, USA, and they're the bad guys, right? Well, I think like a lot of what we're dealing with, like especially like politically, conflict wise, or even personal conflict, is that we don't agree on any of those initial broad strokes anymore. Everybody's so granular in how they think, and like we've also separated ourselves into these little like cliques of people. And if you spend any kind of time scraping away at somebody new, like you might be at a concert and meet somebody, you're like, talking and all this kind of stuff, and then you might spend a little more time with that person, and after not too long, you realize that all you had was that band that you were watching.
Yeah.
That was all you had in common. Then you start talking about politics, or you start talking about, God forbid, religion, or let's say like gender equality, or like sexuality in general. Like pretty quickly, we found ways to like break ourselves up into like such small chunks that like nothing can be talked about anymore without like a fight, And there was a few more points on that, but it kind of made me sad about the future of people in general, but it made me happy for, the couple of friends that I have left,
Yeah.
I don't know, like to try to bring someone new and like truly bring them into you is going to be harder than ever, and it's going to get worse.
It's exhausting. Okay.
Well, and it's often fruitless. That was the point this guy was making.
And okay, so over the last, as technology and openness and awareness has grown, the gray areas have grown as well. I
The
think
gray area is more than anything.
exactly. It used to
it's
be pretty
it's
black and white
gray,
with a gray in the middle. And
right?
now
And
it's
now
like
now
gray
it's
everywhere with little
gray, polka
gloss
dots.
of black and white. And here's the problem is that the black and white is now interpreted through the gray. It's like
Correct.
it's like trying to look at a landscape with cloud cover on it.
Correct.
You can't see it clearly because even though you know that's a fucking mountain, you can't see the edges of the mountain because there's too much gray in the middle.
Yeah.
And eventually what happens? You fucking fly your damn plane into the mountain. That's what happens. And that's, in my mind, like, I have a general, I don't want to say fear, because I'm not actually scared of this. I you know me, I read statistics,
Concern.
all this shit, but over 60% of people in the United States feel that we are headed for some kind of civil unrest or civil war.
All right.
And in my mind, those wars won't be fought in the cities. Those battles won't be in the big metropolitan areas. They'll be in the small towns where it's Bill, Job, Bob, Buck, Jim. They think one way, and Ernest, Frank, Henry, and Tom think another way, and they're going to go corral it.
Right.
And that's a genuine thought process of mine because of that gray. I can't say that I know a single person in my life that is okay with the overturning of Roe versus Wade. Not one. I don't think that there is a single person that I know that feels that that was a right decision. But I know people in my circle that because of the political affiliations they have feel like, well, that's just how it is. That's what my party thinks. That's what I got to do. So they're interpreting it.
Which I think that's the unfortunate part. That's what I was saying about, the microcosms that we've unknowingly or unwittingly, broken ourselves into,
and put her in. Yeah.
Like, having a thought of your own doesn't jive anymore. And if the thought of your own conflicts with, the people that you've decided to align yourself with, then you risk being ostracized in that, And so I think you're right in the aspect of, people toe the line when they don't believe it.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfortunate. Like I thought, and I'm the last person. I'm no patriot. I'm no, I'm not Mr. USA. I think America is in a lot of trouble right now, and not. I can't believe I just said that phrase because I feel like old white Republicans say that shit now because they lost. America's in trouble. America's in trouble for not because Trump is not the president anymore. America's in trouble because I don't even think that people personally have values, like we said, like it used to be us versus the world. Now it's me versus the guy with the rainbow shirt on. Like,
yeah, there's so much infighting, so much personal unrest, and so much individual unrest.
And
within our nation.
This is why it made me laugh and why now I'm kicking myself that I brought it up without bringing you the tweets. But it kind of reminded me of your psychotic tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
Like now everybody's walking around with the I am the wah 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 or whatever it is, and it automatically disqualifies any kind of conversation or any kind of human connection, to see if there is anything in common with our fellow Americans. You walk into a place, especially where I live, probably not too far off. It seems a little bit more lenient where you live, but like, when a dude is running around here with like a tie-dye top and like a man purse, like there's an idea of this person, and it's a full-on prejudge, like no information at all, just the book's cover. But it stops everything right there. Or, some people are a little more enlightened. It doesn't stop everything. Some people are less enlightened. It stops everything positive. And it's like, well, how
an active negative role.
How are we going to fuck this guy up, or whatever. And I just think that I never really thought of it that way, but I see a lot of it in my business of just like again, my little sandbar happens at work, and I'm just hoping this goes well. And the amount of times that it truly like on a heavier level doesn't go well is it's sad. It hurts me, it's just like, well, and it's a little concerning because like people live here in this community,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I deal with that all the time. Like I have a really hard time being in a conservative community when I am so publicly open and will actually, like, I won't back down from an argument. If you say something stupid or factually wrong, I'm gonna argue with you. And not to change your mind. I don't ever expect to change somebody's mind. I'm just hoping somebody else is listening who believed that moment of, oh, well, this is how it is. And then they hear the other side of it and they're like, there's another side. What?
Yeah, it's a flare. Like, don't listen to that guy. Like,
Yeah.
just make sure you hear all of it. But
Like
that
there
guy
should be
particularly is wrong.
there should be, like, it's why I can't stand media. I can't stand most social setups. It's so easy to incite anger, frustration, whatever in people's ideas and mindsets without any factual basis behind it, because you state something. And there's people that are in positions of power who state outright lies that can be scientifically unproven, can be historically unproven, and yet people will believe them for who they are. And that is deplorable.
Correct.
And I think that's the thing, is it's not that we don't have a moral compass. It's that somebody went along and just moved the plate over, like, this is my north. Believe my north, not your north, right. Not society's north. Believe my north. And I know we've Trump dumped a bunch and we've Boberted and all these other things. Like, there's people that just go into this. Like, I'm dealing with, the Tina Peters case is a great example. This is a woman who admittedly is now caught, has been indicted, is facing all these criminal charges for trying to manipulate an election, get information out there, do all these things. And her defense is, I'm trying to make the world a better place. I can't make that make sense in my brain.
No, and it's why I retweeted Entity's account the other day, because
and Matt's got his shit together. Bottom line, Matt's got his shit together. Like, I will forever respect that man. I always have. But he's got his shit together. He knows, he sees through the bullshit.
Right. And he's knowledgeable enough to come at you with like a real rebuttal, not just,
he's got facts. He's got data.
Yeah, my version of that is like, oh, you're such a fucking, how did you even get, but there's no bite to it,
Yeah.
And yeah, it's infuriating when there's people that, I mean, when somebody says not only something that is against like how you feel personally, but that is just inaccurate information, or a lie, it's fucking infuriating,
Yeah.
And I think what's really interesting and unfortunate is like people, it's a mental illness, because it's not that they get a kick out of lying. They don't know that what they're saying is
it's a social illness.
They believe it.
It's a social illness. People, and that is, God, I don't want to get into religion because you and I will talk for like 6 hours. It is easier to believe. It is easier to believe in a concept of a higher power determining your everyday existence than that your political leader broke the law.
Correct. Or one thing that's really freaking me out right now is, the whole push of Christian nationalism, or, part of that speech that I think she was at a church, Boebert, saying that, there's not supposed to be a separation of church and state. The church is supposed to dictate what the government does. And I was like, holy shit. Like,
hello.
Where's the chloroform guy? Where's the guy on the tower? Like, this is, I mean,
yeah.
Well, not only is it a lie,
We're talking Vatican 1300s is what she's talking, and
right?
it is infuriating to me. That
Well, even as a former Christian, I'm offended by that type of stuff. I'm like, I mean, I don't think I'm former. I said that for, whatever reason, but
impact. I get you.
yeah, but when you're not like a practicing, actual religious person, that you go to a church and your faith is shown by your works and not by your words, you know, uh, I'm not that guy anymore. But even as a person that had lived that way and stopped on purpose, it offends me that somebody would actually stand in front of a congregation and say something that ridiculous, inflammatory, and not true. This is not. I mean, you're in government and you're talking about something that is directly opposed to what the entire government was supposed to do for us.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I
yet
just
people still,
can't.
I mean, she's
And
going
they
to win by a landslide, period.
and there's no fucking consequence
Yeah.
to when these people say that stuff.
No.
And that it's really, really frustrating.
I mean,
and
people don't
scary.
realize how dangerous. I mean, people can be upset about the Mar-a-Lago. I think it's funny that the same people who are screaming "never defund the police," they're our only protectors, are now screaming "defund the FBI" because they're investigating officials. You want to watch one of the greatest things I've ever seen? If you get a chance, watch Jon Stewart tear apart Ted Cruz. He did
Not a tough
he
one.
went on, and I don't know if it was for his podcast or he just got frustrated or what, but it's on YouTube. You can look it up. He went up and he just completely broke Ted Cruz apart like a set of Legos and explained policy. Like, do you remember those whole like how a bill is made into a law?
Right.
Or the school of rock stuff, even like this is how it is. Like, you remember those things? Jon Stewart, in that way, without making anybody feel stupid, just did an elementary school level government lesson on this is how bills and laws and these things are presented and passed, and does it in a way that, for one, is hilarious and makes Ted Cruz look really stupid, which I personally enjoy because I don't like that guy. Thing is, I don't care about Ted Cruz's politics. I just don't like him. I just don't like the guy.
He's highly unlikable.
Yeah, I mean, and some people just are. Like, I know plenty of people that I do not agree with religiously, politically, anything, but I like them. Plenty of people. Ted Cruz is one of those people, every time he shows up, my giant googly eyes want to run away.
Well, it's hard to give any kind of credence to somebody that is well, not credence, but like the fact that he's so devoted to Trump after everything that he had said in the past. It's like how do you stand up like that? Like how do you allow this new ideology into your life so deeply that like you can't even stand up for your family as a man and defend yourself, let alone just follow him into hell.
Right.
That's I think that's the thing that I hate.
I mean,
politicians are spineless, but he to me is particularly like anybody that really just toes the Trump line regardless. Like he doesn't give a fuck about any of them, but they carry him on his little chariot.
Well, my biggest concern
hell.
here, I mean, we're coming up on and obviously the Mar-a-Lago situation, the indictments in New York, the different things. Donald Trump may not be able to run for president again, but the issue that I'm running up against, there's a positive and negative too. The Trump era politics have so much strength and so much weight right now that whether Donald Trump runs for president again, he's going to affect the next presidential election. And then the same as he's affecting the primaries and things now. There's a positive side to that for Democrats in that they're kind of winning because Democrats are pretty united right now, which is rare. So the Democrats are kind of winning their things, but I don't necessarily think that's a great thing either. I want to see balance. I want to see change. I want to see things growing and moving forward. And we have, in the last few years, taken monstrous steps back socially.
Yep.
That it's, in some ways, there's just this giant irreparable scar that I don't know a lot of people are going to get over. And I think there's a lot of desensitization. And I think there's a lot of people that are just completely disenfranchised with the entire political system. And that's what gets me when you look at a situation of, like, say, civil unrest, civil war, or, I mean, obviously, it's pretty easy for the highly populated areas in this country to go straight to riot.
Sure.
I mean, it doesn't take much
Well,
to spark that off.
we've seen it recently.
Yeah, and
2 years ago.
so you look at that, that's scarier to me than this concept of we're going to divide Republicans on one side and Democrats on the other. I don't see that as much. I see more a matter of we all get pissed off and we all just, it goes straight. And you said you're not a patriot. I actually consider myself a patriot, but I don't consider myself pro-American. I don't even use the term American. I'm not an American. I live in North America. We don't own the fucking continent.
Right.
You know, I live in the United States. I'm a citizen of the US of A, period. I believe in the basic tenets of what this country was founded on, the equalities and the opportunities. But I also believe that that's colloquial and outdated and has been for about 200 fucking years.
Well, and there's a good chance that it might have been like the smokescreen in general. Because back when all that was going on, like they still had slaves. There was no all these other movements.
You can't talk equality when you can't say all men are created equal, except if you have skin color.
Correct.
Like
unless you're super rich and you can buy people, we're all created.
Yeah, and not to get too conspiracist or anything, but there is still a level of that going on where, I mean, I see it right now. The old boys clubs exist in so many. I mean, in this town, oh my God, I can't talk about it much because it's still kind of going on, but I faced a judge a couple of weeks ago who was willing to fight federal law because he was irritated. He was going to ignore federal law because he was in a bad mood.
And that's kind of what I was trying to point out earlier. It's like the importance and the push behind individuality has made the majority of us forget everything.
Yeah.
Now you said, Republicans, Democrats, half and half or whatever, like they all have fucking forgot something super simple. They're supposed to be on the same team in the end.
Yeah. Supposed to be one common goal, one kind of
offense and defense. Yeah, it's commonality that they just fucking forgot.
Yeah. Well, and you've got a Republican Party that's split into three. You've got a Democratic Party that's split into two. You've got so many different independent divisions, and it's almost like there's so much independent thought that there's no independent thought.
Well, there's no way that there, like I said earlier, it's so granular. There's no way to prop up anything of value, because if it's just one person or three people saying it, like there's no way to shore it up. And if anything, it kind of like, again, shoots up the flare of like, oh, there's another group over there saying stuff. Let's not pay attention to that.
Yeah.
They're not standing over here, so whatever they.
Well, and there's a common misconception. People don't remember how the government actually works in this country either, and that's part of it too. Where if you have half a fucking brain, you should be able to remember that. In all honesty, there's a tertiary system so that there's checks and balances. And right now we have a Supreme Court kind of running amok and doing what they want, which is pissing off the legislative branch, which is supposed to be actually handling those things and introducing those things. And then you've got your executive branch, which is supposed to be overseeing the two of them to make sure that they're actually communicating, working together. They're all adversarial. They're all fighting each other. No one's actually communicating. And it's literally, well, you did this and you did. If somebody would just put a giant mirror in front of everybody so they'd stop pointing at each other and point at themselves for fucking 5 minutes, man. 5 minutes, accept your role as an elected leader of our nation and or our region or our sector. If people would do that, and that starts on a local level. But if people would just for 5 fucking minutes stop and go, why am I taking this stance? And does it represent my constituency, the people I was elected by? And I would wager to guess a solid 75% would be like, oops.
Right. it's a hard conversation to have. Like it always has been. It's like for me, it's always has been because I wasn't knowledgeable enough.
Yeah.
Now it's hard because there's no way to end it. You know, I think one of the things that happened to me recently that was showing a little light on this from a totally different angle was, we do a lot of work with veterans here, and because of the community, kind of being older, that like there's a lot of veterans for this small town, and this guy in particular was a Vietnam vet, and he kind of broke down the difference between like coming or no prepping to go to Vietnam and his ideology back then versus what he's looking at now. And he stopped a little short of saying, I might have taken drastic action to not go to Vietnam back then if I knew that, 40, 50 years down the road, this is what we were dealing with.
I've heard similar.
I've
heard similar from
country.
People who just got back from their second tour in Pakistan or their second tour in Afghanistan. I've heard that recently in recent years, the same mentality. Like, I've known going in what I know right now, I wouldn't have enlisted.
Yeah, I wonder, like, obviously very few opportunities anymore to talk to somebody that's World War II or anything like that. But, you kind of wonder if you were to talk to somebody that was still, kind of politically plugged in, what they would say about it. To me, it makes more sense that, a recent military serviceman would have beef with it. It was a little surprising to me that, he was basically saying that he never really co-signed on any of it. He didn't want to go to Vietnam. He thought it was, there was no declaration of war. He thought it was, smokescreen bullshit. He didn't want to go. And now, just looking at the way everything is, like, he still considers himself to be Republican, but he still now, because of what's going on, he feels the need to separate himself or encapsulate himself anyway from the rest because he doesn't agree with the inflammatory nature of, like, the MAGA Republicans or, even just people that they just spout things like, regurgitate lies that they saw on OAN or whatever,
Yeah.
or even CNN, whatever, whoever you look at, and it's a lie, this guy went and fought, and he feels the need to insulate himself from people that are supposed to think, in a similar vein.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really common. Talking to my dad and some of his friends,
it's all there is anymore. And that's where we're in trouble, I think,
Yeah. Well, talking to my dad about it and the people in his age group, like a lot of them are very opposing and politically, but they all kind of view the same thing as we're a fuck. That's like the universal. They're like, we don't agree on anything except that we're fucked. And that's hard to swallow. Like for me, like I say, I do actually consider myself kind of a patriot and something. That's why I pay attention. I have a very hard time swallowing any of the shit that is spoon fed to me by the media on either side, because I hate the fact that I have to say there's sides.
Right.
There shouldn't be sides to this. There should be an inherent right and an inherent wrong. When you talk about World War II, we're talking about the mass genocide of an entire population of people based on religion or based on skin color. Pretty easy to fight against that on a moral standpoint. Looking at Ukraine, it infuriates me at times that more people aren't actively getting involved in what's going on over there, because it's not about anything other than money. The Desert Shield, Desert Storm was about oil. Like we're talking wars over dollar signs instead of moral rights and moral wrongs.
Well, and I think it's coming to people's front door, especially in America. Like, we're lucky that we don't have somebody dropping bombs on us and having firefights near nuclear plants and
scary,
just ridiculous stuff. Yeah, but I think the minified genocide band name, anybody that
Really good.
Yeah, only midgets though, and they're a tribute band to no one. Um,
They're tribute to themselves.
yeah, I think co-signing on cops shooting unarmed black dudes, and um, like you were saying, even the whole issue of abortion, charging somebody with murder when their health is at risk, that they're being able to be here in the future is at risk. I think it bothers me that we've become so selfish that like none of these things, like, they matter, but not to everyone. you know um they matter to a lot of people, and obviously there's people that are active and trying to make a difference, and like I'm the last one to say anything about any of it, but I do think that it's this it's the lack of common decency and compassion for just people in general that it shores up the idea of like individualism and doing all this stuff and separating everyone apart from each other. The idea of being a patriot, or being an American, is just lost. Like you were saying, fuck,
Yeah.
like.
Well, what's the scariest thing to anybody in a
And now
position of
this,
power?
say it again. Sorry.
What's the scariest thing to anybody in a position of power?
Right.
A unified front.
Oh yeah. And there's no such thing. There's little ones,
Yeah.
mini ones.
Yeah. If you got
But
an actual unified front to actually step up and do something, I mean, we saw it in the big cities in 2020. You get enough people pissed off and they step up, you can't ignore it.
how long do you think before law enforcement is a subscription-based thing?
Dude, like,
Can you
I don't
imagine?
know. I have a lot of
Like,
friends who are cops, and I'm never going to be one of those people that subscribes to. And this is a person, I've gone to jail a lot. I've been arrested a lot. I've had a lot of really bad experiences, but I will never say all cops are bad. I just believe that one bad cop can completely poison an entire well.
yeah.
And that's been my biggest
Well,
struggle.
and I also think that there are people in positions of power that they find some sort of, some more power, or some sort of, I don't know, some kind of warm fuzzy from having a pool of poison.
No, it is. It's absolutely like being able to control that. There's that, and there's also accidental corruption. People who don't know that there's a different way, or the way they're supposed to do it, they're taught the wrong way, and so they continue to do it. I mean, there are simple existences and simple things we take for granted that we do every day that are actually illegal or morally reprehensible, but because we were taught that way. Like racism, you're not born racist. You're taught that.
Right.
You're not born misogynist. You're taught that. Like it's something that should be more recognized and kind of, it's like we're indoctrinated to accept what's around us rather than look beyond that. But then when we do look beyond that, we're looked down upon for looking elsewhere to find the truth. There's no winning. There's no winning there, especially in a society that is so based on participation is all that matters. Everybody needs to take part. Everybody wins. Look how great we are. You don't have, we aren't a nation. The reason we're not a world superpower and we're a joke because we're not developing leaders. We're developing figureheads and celebrities. We're developing puppets. We're not developing any kind of actual substantive true leader, a person that lives by example, with the good and the bad.
I kind of had this weird thought the other day that like politicians, this was kind of what I was thinking about the chat I had with that vet. And I was like, well, just trying to grasp it like a new idea. Of course they're half-baked and not very smart, but maybe our politicians, like one of the things that really, really pisses me off about, politicians on Twitter is the amount of, keyboard tough guy that seemingly, Democrats do it too, but Republicans seem way more, in for that whole smoke show and like saying, we're gonna go after the FBI and Ray and all this stuff for all the, overreaching and illegal activity, talking about Mar-a-Lago and all that. And we're coming for you when this is all over. It's like you're not gonna do any of that. Maybe the thought popped in my head, like, well, what if our politicians could only be like former servicemen? Like you cannot be a congressman or a senator or anything like that without having had to put your life on the line to come back to a better country, you know?
There's some substance to that. I mean, I still find it odd that civilians can be our commander in chief. If you've never done any military planning, it's basically playing a game of Risk. You're trusting a person to be the commander in chief who may have zero tactical knowledge whatsoever.
Well, we lived through that a few times, but
exactly. I mean, going back to the pigs. I mean, go back. That was a blunder above all blunders back in the '60s, and people look at it like, oh, we won that one. No, we got lucky and nobody.
We got lucky,
died.
yeah. No,
we got lucky.
No one hit the switch.
Yeah, because both sides were ready to.
Right, and then what was I going to say?
The other side of that people forget, though, is most people in the Soviet Union, they believed what they were doing was right. Nazis believed in what they believed in.
Correct.
The Whigs, the Republicans, the Nationalists, the Sentinels, they believed in what they believe in. And the militia now. Belief in something is just as dangerous as hope if it's misguided or it's been determined to be morally skewed. Right. There's no such thing as a pure intention anymore. And so many different organizations are built upon a concept of what may have started as a great idea, but turned into something. It was distorted and defiled in a way that we can't come back from. Even the best of intentions can pave the way to hell. We've all learned that. I guess I'm trying to figure out where we as a nation, or we, not even as a nation, where we as individuals can step in and take responsibility for our own actions and go, here's where the line stops. I say it all the time. I will step in, and if I see a wrongdoing and I do nothing about it, I'm just as guilty of the wrongdoing. I truly believe that, and I live that way to the point where I have people that were the closest friends I've ever had, I have nothing to do with and never will again, because they crossed a line they cannot come back from.
Right. Well, I guess when you have that, ceremonial tag on you, you can just act however you want, and you can call it whatever you want, but in the name of, righteousness and your country and all that kind of stuff. And
how many millions of people have died in the name of God?
Right.
Why would that ever be something any supreme being would want?
Well, and let's hope that it doesn't turn into like how many people are going to die now in the name of Trump. Because that's what I think is frightening. Like I've actually had the opportunity to sit across from an oath keeper and hear some of the stuff, and like, those guys I think are a hard pill to swallow, because like they did serve, whether it was law enforcement or military, but they're so up their own ass with the ideology that they are willing to hurt people for their agenda.
Yeah.
And that's the scary, it's not how bad, bad men do things, but it's like how much further can someone else go,
Well, look at the Unabomber.
Okay.
The Unabomber had a million great ideas in his manifesto. Honest to God, great ideas.
Right.
He just felt the need to blow people up to get his point out there.
Yeah, it was very comic booky.
It's literally, Mr. Glass, there you go. The fucking, Shyamalan's. Mr. Glass actually isn't the bad guy. He's trying to open the world up to view things really and look at the reality of what we're actually up against. Be open to this can actually exist through violence.
Right.
I mean, that kind of shit is in some ways real. Many serial killers, many extremists, domestic terrorists, they truly just believe that what they're doing. And in some instances, where they start and what they're trying to put out there is not a bad thing. They just demonize it and make something evil out of it. Like it's like, I don't know. I used to joke that, like, I don't know if you've ever watched the AVNs versus like the Oscars.
A little, yeah.
The porn stars dress more conservatively than many people who go to the Oscars or the Emmys.
Correct.
They look classier. It's treated with more respect. There's more equality and everybody is clapping for everybody. It's not nearly as competitive. It's let's build each other up. And I've always joked that if a porn star, I mean, you've seen it before. Attention, my boobs. Now that I've got your attention, here's the actual thing.
Right.
If more people would actually adopt that kind of extremist positive vibe and get people to pay attention without having to be so extreme.
It's underdog mentality.
Yeah, it's impossible to be quiet and get your point across anymore, it feels like. And yet it's those quiet people that know they're right that aren't getting listened to that become dangers down the road for one reason or another, because their view, their point of view, their image, their whatever gets distorted, or they themselves get distorted because no one's listening.
Well, you and I can, feel good about the fact that, we were alive during a time when it was normal-ish, we didn't have to go to war. We didn't, we've seen things politically, but like we didn't have to participate or be forced to do it. We got to, be capitalists and have fun and literally do whatever you want for a time, because I think what's a little frightening now is just, this is the best part and it's starting to decline, like if you are religious, this is the feet of clay and iron, the statue's going to fall.
Yeah, it's the end times. And I guess that to me is like, but how much of our society in the United States affects the society on the rest of the planet? And that's the other side of it that kind of gives me like kind of the warm fuzzies, is that, not to Jeff Goldblum too much, but life finds a way. And I feel like there would be on some level a global response to, at some point, the rest of the planet's going to look around and is like, all right, you dumb little shit, sit the fuck down and listen. You're fucking grounded. We're taking your toys away. And it'll turn into a fucking fight, or it'll turn into a, oh shit, it's not so much that I'm mad, but I'm disappointed. And we'll have those moments, I keep hope. I kind of hope for that.
Well,
I mean, we're in the anniversary. Tomorrow's 9/11.
Correct.
And it's a day to me that has been, everybody has those moments of, where were you when? And we're old enough to know what we were doing. I mean, we were into adulthood and into cognizance when that happened. The way this country felt for the 4 or 5 years after that is very similar to the way I feel right now. It's just pointed very differently. If you'd asked me the year after 9/11 if I thought this nation was going to survive, I would have told you no. I was more concerned about the government falling apart then than I am now. What I'm concerned about now is society taking it into its own hands, our population, and running with the wrong ideals and modicums, and we're looking at Hunger Games level uprising.
Right.
Where the government has to step in and swat the shit out of the general population. That's my worry.
Well, and it's something to worry about, and then the other side, like they're all pissed off at the president now for saying something to that effect, Like if you're truly going to make an uprising, you tried once, you succeeded in part, January.
Mhm.
Like if you decide you're going to get loose and do it again, like you have a massive force to deal with. And he was
Yeah,
talking
there's
about the army, and I'm like he's speaking truth, like I've never had any uh I never thought that if they had to, like if Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, whoever all like actually united to start a war, there's no part of me that didn't think that the army wouldn't respond, to a domestic terrorist, essentially.
yeah,
You know, very frightening. But like, of course, the Republicans are like, oh, he's further dividing the country. Like, nah, 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 nah. The country's divided, like, and not just in half. It's divided,
it's
like you
shattered.
said,
It's
chopping
shattered.
block.
Yeah,
And he's just saying like what will happen. Too bad you don't like it. Too bad that you probably don't like it because you think you're on the wrong side of it. You know, I don't know.
well, and that's
Yeah.
that was a pretty good pin in that one. I mean, that is kind of what it boils down to.
Well, it's funny because in my head, and I know that it's bad on both sides, but and I don't even consider myself like especially not a patriot, but for sure not Democratic or Republican, but the like you were saying, people have to be screaming to get a point across. Watch them when they're being really quiet, like right now. The Trump's ex-lawyer, that Ty Cobb, he came out and said, it's a long shot, but they're gonna use, I don't know the article off the top of my head, but there's a little portion of the Constitution that can possibly block Trump from holding office again because he's an insurrectionist.
Yeah.
One of his own lawyers went on TV and said that. Now, we all know that only a sliver of people saw that clip or even know about it. But I mean, that should freak people out. That should scare people that are pro or that toe his line, you know, and they clam up a little bit. To me, that's very telling, like how loud they are versus like what potentially could be right or could be what's coming down the pipe for them is super telling, silence is deafening, and
Yeah.
I think it's just because maybe you're taking up a cause that like you have nothing to do with, and maybe you shouldn't. I don't know. I
Again,
think me
it
being
comes
me
down
being
to
apolitical being apolitical makes it harder to speak intelligently on it because you see so much bullshit. It's like to me, I feel like it's right to not want civil war
right,
over a celebrity, you know,
right.
because that's all it is. Like boil it down further for me. You can. I mean, it's one guy, one celebrity, one. Clearly not all that smart about policy or about much of anything. You know, and this is what you're willing to do, like the hill you're willing to die on. You know,
Well,
with
and people have been doing
presidents.
it in this country for a couple hundred years, so it's not entirely shocking.
Correct.
But I don't know. I am, yeah. My frustration day to day on this stuff. I literally say probably 20 articles a week, and I do fact checking and I do all this stuff, and I just go through all of it, and I can spiral out for forever. But what it boils down to is how you set for yourself the example you set, and the question that we as individuals need to ask ourselves: at what point are we willing to pull a trigger ourselves?
Yeah.
I mean, that literally, I mean, figuratively or literally, that is where we are. Is at what point is it life or death for you?
Right.
And that's,
And I think
I don't
that's
like being forced into that. I don't like that I'm being forced to think that way.
but that's one of the chasms too, because not everybody can even go there mentally. Like not bragging, but I was in an actual like pistol training class earlier today. You know, as much as I enjoy like the entertainment value of all that stuff, like I'm doing that for a reason. You
Yeah.
know, because I've had this long and hard thought for many years, like way before all this stuff started. Politically, and I mean, obviously politics go on, but this particular context, COVID and, the wars and, the civil unrest and all, Trumpism, MAGA, all that kind of stuff. The idea of having to defend yourself, maybe if it's not from a militia person, it's just somebody breaking in your house, like, can you mentally be ready for that? And I think there's a vast majority of people that have, it's not even in
Mike
their
Tyson
mind.
said it best. Everybody has a plan until you get hit.
Yeah.
Period. You don't know how you're going to react as somebody who's been literally at knife point, at gunpoint, at these situations, had my life threatened, had my loved ones threatened, had people. You don't know how you're going to react to you there. The same as when you see a fucking accident and how you respond to it, or you witness somebody get really hurt and how you, until you experience it, you don't know. We like to tell ourselves that we know what we would do in every situation. We're all full of shit.
Correct.
The experience itself is the only determiner there.
Right.
And you can go out. I mean, I have friends that go out and they do airsoft and they go and they do all these military training, pseudo militaristic things, and they think they're all big and badass. And then they go up against actual military and like, we didn't know shit. You talk a good game. I have one friend, she was dating a guy who was telling everybody he was a Marine, and she thought that for several years and just found out recently he was never a Marine. Like he enlisted and went through the basic processes and then never went. But he knew enough that until he was around actual military, nobody called him out on it. You don't know how you're going to act in any situation. And the same as, I have friends who don't have kids who love to pass judgment on parents. I have friends who have kids who like to pass judgment on the non-parents. Like, shut the fuck up. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't compute. It doesn't cross over, and it doesn't relate to anything until you're actually in it.
Right. Yeah, you have no way of knowing, like you said, accident, like somebody just slips and falls and there's a lot of blood somehow, like if you've been through that, and maybe, maybe you were right on it, maybe you went and helped and there was no lag in action, but until you're there, you don't know.
Nope.
So.
And that's exactly how it works. And I guess I have friends who, EMTs, cops, different people. They're like, yeah, even like I'm trained to do everything. There's a firefighter that I know who, he's a firefighter. He's very good at his job. He's been training for years, and something happened in his garage or something like that. And he's like, I broke like 4 cardinal rules trying to get to my car in my garage. Like, didn't feel for heat, didn't do this. Like, my training went out the window because it was my house.
Right.
He burned the shit out of himself because he panicked.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm literally there training these people to do this, and then it happens to me, and I just fucking know I'm an idiot. And that's just how life is. Right. And I don't get why people don't understand that. So when we're talking on a grand scale, like, until you're faced it, until you know the situation of sitting across from somebody that you are morally opposed to or politically opposed to, and they react. I mean, most people are so non-confrontational, they'll just, oh, it's fine. There's those people that are going to hit first and ask questions later. There are those people that are going to fucking play Monday morning quarterback, and this is how it should have been. The bottom line is nobody knows until you're there. And we forget that. Yep. We forget that too often. And so there's all this speculation, all these things. And meanwhile, we're still a nation that's focused on Sunday afternoon football and who's going to, let's everybody stay distracted and everybody stay off point. And yet everybody has an opinion.
And dumb.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild, just even when you talk about polls, you said earlier 60% think we're going to some kind of civil unrest, well, then they take another poll about the president's speech, and now 40% of Americans think that MAGA Republicans are a threat to democracy. It's like, nah, that's like a nice little pacifier for people that are worried,
Yeah. Well, you want to look at actual statistics. You want to look at our last election. And in a lot of ways, I view our last election as there's still a whole lot of really racist fucking people in this country.
Oh my God.
And
Alive and well, chicken.
that one just
Thriving.
I've never been able to understand homophobia or xenophobia. I can't. I'm physically incapable of understanding it. I don't think I have ever looked at a single person in my life and my first impression was I'm frightened of them because they're different.
Right. Well, that's a nice thing to have that apparently, 70% of our country doesn't. So
yeah, I just it blows me away. And the number of people who have to live scared and have to live, I mean, I miss the days when it was like, I have tattoos and I need a job full time. Please employ me. That seems simple now. That was a big deal 20 years ago. Like, I have tattoos and I can't get a regular job. Now I'm like,
right.
Fuck, that was little shit.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty weird how even the last decade how different things are.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the reasons that I kind of like I have anxiety over doing the podcast anymore is just the worry that you're going to say something that you shouldn't, or whatever. And like the reality is like there's nothing, there's no hate, there's no like you were saying, there's no race. Like I could say it, but like, do I really believe it? Did I say it for a joke? It's hard to.
There are things
I shouldn't worry about it like I do.
Obviously, yeah, there's things that can be misinterpreted, but I don't believe in coddling the masses for the sake of not having a point. And that's been one of my big things. The whole reason that we all started this was because we're ridiculous and kind of funny, but it also was that it's okay to speak your mind. People talk about, I want a safe place. I want a safe place. This is a safe place to literally be. I can't wait for the days like and I'm going to do this just so you're aware. I know Alexi a little bit. I've talked to you about him and the fact that he's excommunicated and everything too. I can't wait to get both of you in a room at the same time to discuss your relationship with the church, because you both come from very similar places and have completely different views. And it's so fascinating to me. And it's something that I myself can't relate to, raised the way I was. So for me, that's an example. It's something where you both have very similar reasons, backgrounds, consequences, say, but have completely different takes on the same. I love that. That's where it is that going to be a popular episode? Probably not. Do I care? Not in the slightest, because to me it's fascinating.
Correct.
And for the 10 or 15 people or the 100 people or the 500 people who relate to that, that's what it's for. That's why every episode is different. That is why, for me, having this podcast is not about any one thing. It's about all things. It's encompassing it all. Like I'm having another porn star on. We're not talking about porn. We're talking about she's talking about being repressed in a relationship and finding a way out of that, and then ghosts and the other shit that she finds interesting, and riding her motorcycles. Like that's what we're talking about. People have an expectation. You think it's just going to be one thing.
Well, and it is a nice feeling because like the majority of people don't get the time or the opportunity to practice speaking their mind. Now, if the reason you do that or you don't do that is because you don't want other people to say what's on or to hear what's on your mind, then that's one thing, but
and that's
you should be able to have that opportunity, and that's why I do appreciate doing this. So thanks, man.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we rambled enough probably and confused some people and pissed some people off, so it'll be good. I'm going to put Controlled Demise on this one because they just dropped a new single here, and holy shit, is it the best material they've ever done. I'm so proud of those boys, so can't wait to get that on here. We'll have that on. Anything you're working on, anything you want to shout out?
Cut Rolled Demise t-shirts available on the Facebook, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. God, they're so much fun. I can't wait to get Zach back on the show, because have you ever watched the first 10 minutes of the episode I did with Keith and Zach from Swinging News?
No.
It's the most chaotic thing I've ever done in my life, and it was so. I laughed the whole time. I can watch that. I go back and watch it. It's been a year, over a year. I can still go back and watch that and laugh my ass off because it was. That is the epitome of what it's like to hang out with us as a group, because I just sat down and the cameras, we were just rolling, and it's from my perspective, and it's fucking, I mean, watching them argue with each other, it's absolutely ridiculous. And it's the one episode I wish more people would, because if you want to know what it's like to hang out with us, because people are like, it must be so much glamorous and so fun. Go watch that. It's chaos. It's absolute chaos. And it makes me so fucking happy.
Right on, man.
So, well, appreciate you taking time out of your day.
Yeah, I'll call you in here in a little bit. We'll chat.
Okay.
I have to pee badly.
Okay.
But thank you again.
Absolutely. Everybody listening, stay safe. Reach out to people. Don't do dumb shit. Don't buy into dumb shit. Don't accept dumb shit. And don't be a dumb shit.
Dumb shit.
Dumb shit.
Hi, my name is Madman and I'm an alcoholic. You got a drinking establishment, you can have my wallet. This is exactly why I can't have nice things. Never drink again without a long clock rings. But sundown recovery happens in quitting time, and you can bet I'm getting mine about 5:30. Happy hour.